May the 4th be with you all. Happy Star Wars Day. Because today is Star Wars Day, I decided to revisit my favorite franchise of all time and determine which action sequences I like the most, specifically ones that involve the iconic weapon, the lightsaber. I have made up a list of my top 10 favorite lightsaber fights in the Star Wars franchise, and I am going to present them today in this video. Now, a few things before I start. One, I am not going to include any lightsaber sequences from the Star Wars, Clone Wars, or Rebels TV shows. I am strictly analyzing the movies for this video. Two, the sequences I have looked into do not have to be strictly just two people fighting with laser swords. Sequences where rebel soldiers or stormtroopers are shooting at somebody wielding a lightsaber have been considered as well. And finally, spoilers ahead. Let's get into it. Number 10. Anakin Skywalker vs. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This is a climactic duel in the third film of the prequel trilogy, where the Master is forced to fight his former apprentice who has turned to the dark side. The entire film has been building up to this duel, and overall it is pretty cool, although it does look heavily choreographed, which kind of does take away from the emotion that we're supposed to feel during the battle. And it goes on for way too long. Despite those few flaws, it is still pretty cool and ends with a genuinely emotional moment. Number 9. The Escape from Jabba's Grasp, Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. This sequence of our heroes escaping from the grasp of the devious giant slug monster known as Jabba the Hutt is pretty cool. There are a few silly moments like Boba Fett dying way too easily and Han shooting at Lando even though he can barely see, but it is still so cool seeing Luke swing at the bad guys with a green lightsaber. Nowadays, green lightsabers are commonplace and very familiar, but back in 1983, before this film came out, we had only seen blue and red lightsabers before. So seeing a green lightsaber for the first time blew my mind, especially as a kid. This sequence is my 9th favorite scene involving a lightsaber. Number 8. Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi vs. Count Dooku, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. The fight between these three in the previous film, Attack of the Clones, was extremely underwhelming and very poorly filmed and edited. So it was refreshing to see a duel between these three that was actually pretty cool and well choreographed. I really don't have that much else to say about this duel other than it's really cool and it ends with a surprisingly dark moment. Number 7. Rey and Finn vs. Kylo Ren, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. The climactic duel in the 7th Star Wars film isn't that well choreographed, but I think that's the point. I really like the rawness and spontaneity of the battle. It is thrilling to see Rey and Finn, neither of whom have much lightsaber training, if any at all, try to take down Kylo Ren, who is clearly the much more experienced lightsaber duelist. The only dumb moment from this battle is when Rey is trying to be one with the Force, and Kylo is just standing there and basically lets her win. Come on, man! Strike her down while her eyes are closed! Nevertheless, it is still a really cool duel. Number 6. Finn vs. TR-8R, aka Traitor, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Oh, the memes that have come from this deadly encounter between Finn and the now iconic Stormtrooper. This battle is very brief, but really cool. Just like the fight between Rey and Kylo Ren, I really liked the rawness and spontaneity of the duel. I know that TR-8R gets shot at the end, but I hope to see this surprisingly cool Stormtrooper again. Number 5. Luke Skywalker vs. Darth Vader, Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. This is another duel where the whole film is pretty much leading up to this very specific moment. Luke has been training for this very moment with Master Yoda throughout the whole film, but leaves to face a clearly superior and menacing villain before his training is over. This fight mostly consists of a series of choreographed movements, but there are moments of intense spontaneity and rage, mostly from Darth Vader, whenever necessary, and it leads to one of the best and most famous plot twists of all time. Number 4. Darth Vader versus the Rebel Soldiers, Rogue One, a Star Wars story. As great as the fight sequences involving Darth Vader in the original trilogy were, they weren't that well choreographed and were mostly great due to the emotional weight and stakes behind them. We haven't really gotten a truly impressive and intense action sequence involving Darth Vader yet, until Rogue One came out, and this awesome sequence was included in the film. Overall, the film is decent but nothing great. But what is great is Darth Vader's ruthless massacre of rebel soldiers and his attempts to get the stolen Death Star plans. This sequence finally shows us how truly powerful and ruthless Vader can be. It is brief but awesome. Number 3. Rey and Kylo Ren versus the Praetorian Guards, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. This might be one of the best choreographed lightsaber sequences in the entire franchise. After Kylo Ren thankfully kills Supreme Leader Snoke, he and Rey team up to fight the Praetorian Guards in an epic battle that many audience members agree is awesome. The film itself is very polarizing, but most can agree that this sequence is incredible. Number 2. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Maul, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The best lightsaber sequences are the ones that are filmed in wide shots and where the environment in which the characters are fighting in is taken advantage of at its fullest. In my opinion, the fight sequence between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul does exactly that. Darth Maul is one of the coolest characters in the entire saga, and he gets to participate in one of the coolest fights in any Star Wars movie. The choreography, the way in which the fight is filmed, and the direction of the fight throughout the environment in which the characters are fighting, they're all great. My only gripe with the film is that I wish Darth Maul hadn't died at the end and that he could have been in the other 2 prequel films. Nevertheless, this fight is incredible. And my favorite fight involving a lightsaber in any Star Wars movie is Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader, Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Okay, so I will admit the choreography in this fight isn't really that good, but I picked this as my favorite fight scene involving a lightsaber because of the emotional stakes behind the duel. Up until this point, the Emperor has been taunting Luke to turn to the dark side by striking him down, and unfortunately, Luke is tempted by the dark side, and the Emperor's attempts to seduce him are successful. He force grabs his lightsaber to strike down the Emperor, but then Vader pulls out his lightsaber and blocks the strike. From there on, father and son duel, which is exactly what the Emperor wanted. This duel isn't just physical, it is also an emotional and moral battle inside Luke of whether he is going to turn to the dark side or not. And when it seems like he is going to, Luke finally makes the right decision and doesn't. He chooses to be a Jedi like his father before him. Once the Emperor's plan fails, he attempts to kill Luke with Force Lightning. Now, it is Vader's turn to have an inner emotional battle as to whether he is going to stay on the path of darkness or save his son from his former master. He chooses to save his son, but dies from absorbing some of the lightning from the Emperor's hands. These last few moments are great, and I tear up every time I see Vader's death scene. This duel, for sure, isn't the best choreographed battle in the saga, but it is the most emotionally investing, which is why it is my favorite Star Wars fight involving a lightsaber.